It is September 18th, 2025. I'm Richard Dwyer, dwyercrime.blog. Also, always 1776.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, I operate a blog in conjunction with dwyercrime.blog, where I post different videos and information pertaining to crimes in the news. Folks, right now, if you go to murder777.blogspot.com, I'll put a link in the description section of this YouTube video. Again, it's murder777.blogspot.com. You're going to have a video from a gun aficionado, a guy who has taken apart his rifle hundreds of times, right? And he shows you, by taking apart his rifle, how utterly implausible, how completely unbelievable the public narrative of what the alleged assassin did after purportedly shooting Charlie Kirk is, right? In other words, folks, right now, the public narrative is that this assassin somehow gets on the roof of a building at a college he attended years ago, right? The assassin, and you should know this, on a college admissions test, the national test, the ACT, got a 34, which would place him in the 99th percentile of all people who took it. In other words, you have a guy who his own mother, I believe, called her genius son. This guy's extremely bright. So he somehow is on the roof, right? Gets to campus, immediately knows where to go. He's on the roof. He fires one shot. It's the perfect shot from 200 yards away. It hits Charlie Kirk in the throat, hits an artery. Kirk is bleeding out, right? In other words, if I hit your carotid artery, just understand, chances are you're going to be dead in 3 minutes, right? These neck arteries are flush with blood. Your brain needs the blood. That's where to hit a person, right? Just understand, this kid, 22 years old, from 200 yards away, is supposed to have shot at and killed Charlie Kirk. Now, what we're focusing on here are the minutes after the shooting. We're supposed to believe that this 22-year-old then disassembled the rifle, put it into his knapsack. We then see him run to the corner of the building. We have film of it, right? The gun is in his knapsack. The knapsack is not that big. The guy then is able to, in a two-step move, jump off the building. And of course, where does he pick? He picks the most publicly seen part of the building. Right, he jumps off the building right next to a crowded parking lot. Well, let me just make a point here. As the video, it's the most recent video posted. There's a link at murder777.blogspot.com. A gun expert disassembles his high-powered rifle. Folks, the minute you see him dealing with the tools needed to disassemble the rifle, the minute you see how hard it is to take apart the rifle, the public narrative that we've been fed is fictitious. Right, folks? It didn't happen that way. It's not possible. A professional could not have shot Charlie Kirk and then immediately disassembled the rifle, gotten the rifle to fit into his knapsack as it had to for the film of the alleged assassin getting off the building shows us actually happened. In other words, on the film, the guy has the knapsack, he's slinging the knapsack around, the gun's not sticking out of the knapsack. Folks, that's impossible. Also, of course, the guy has the gun in the knapsack moments after the shooting. Folks, that's not possible. So here's what I think is possible. Law enforcement has this guy in custody. They understand that the guy likely didn't do the shooting. So they have him in custody, and their goal is to get him to tell them who he was working with. Who are the real people involved in this? Right? We understand. This guy who supposedly left the gun in the wooded area. And as I keep saying, and information's coming out daily, I want to know if that gun is magically reassembled, because then we would know the whole story's hogwash. Right? The kid may have been up on the building without a firearm. A firearm would have just gotten in the way. Right? The kid might be a decoy. There's a building next to the building he was on. That building has construction going on. People could have hidden in the shadows to get off the shot. We think we know the angle. Why? Because this guy was the guy who was up and running on the roof after the fatal shot. We're making a leap of faith. Okay, Charlie Kirk shot by a high-powered rifle, likely from a rooftop. We look up at the rooftop. It's on film. We see a figure running across the rooftop. So our deductive thinking is, oh, well, if Kirk got shot from someone up on a rooftop, this guy who's up on a rooftop running after the shooting must be the shooter. Right, folks? I'd like to know whether the bullet that hit Kirk even came from the gun they found in the woods. Right? This guy, of course, as a conspirator would do, isn't helping law enforcement. It's not like the guy's in custody and the guy's saying, look, I was approached by some guy named Raul. Right? The guy's not even going the James Earl Ray route. Right? This guy's not helping law enforcement. Right? This guy had his part, run across a roof after, Charlie Kirk is shot, have enough of a gun history where we see the guy, using firearms in photos. That doesn't mean, as you'll see going to murder777.blogspot.com, looking at a gun being disassembled by a gun aficionado, and he can't match the timeline. Right? Just understand, Tyler Robinson, these photos of him with firearms, maybe he used guns in the past. Number one, that doesn't make him a professional marksman. Right? One shot and he hits Charlie Kirk in the neck in a place where they can't save Charlie. Right? You believe this 22-year-old kid was able to get off one shot perfectly? Right? Just because the guy's posing with guns doesn't mean the guy can disassemble this rifle fast enough to fit this timeline. Right, folks? I'm just telling you something's wrong. Also, the breadcrumbs he leaves. Right? This isn't Mark David Chapman. This isn't some assassin who is inside his own head, is personally tortured, And he thinks, okay, look, I'm going to kill John Lennon. Why? Because I want people to think of me whenever they think of John Lennon. Right? This isn't that person. This is a different personality type entirely. This isn't David Berkowitz. No girlfriend. No, this guy is in a relationship. This guy's living with his partner. This guy is social online. He's on online forums, talking to people. And of course, he's dropping hints. Right? I don't like Charlie Kirk. I might do something about it. Right then afterwards, people see him not firing a gun. No, they see the photos that law enforcement came up with. Right? Perhaps based on the idea that this guy was on the roof. Let's stop for a moment here and ask the question, who saw him firing the gun? Who? Right, folks? Law enforcement released photos because the best lead they had was the idea that this guy, seen on camera jumping off a building, right? That's his big role, jumping off a building. He might as well be one of the 3 tramps near the Kennedy assassination, right? This guy's jumping off a building. He might as well be the guy with the umbrella near the Kennedy assassination. This guy jumps off a building. They have photos of him. They match it up. They say, wow, he's wearing these clothes. Who is this guy? And of course, his friends, because he has friends. Guy's not a loner. His friends then think, wow, that looks like Tyler. Right? Then, of course, what the conspirators want happens. Right? Wow, Tyler did talk negatively of Charlie Kirk. Tyler does know his way around guns. Maybe Tyler did this. Right, folks? He couldn't have disassembled the gun fast enough to put it in the knapsack he's carrying, to jump off the building. Right? As I mentioned in an earlier video, why's the guy taking the gun off the building in any event? If he's the shooter, isn't his top priority to get off the building and to escape? Right? He didn't do this high profile, a killing, with a gun he owned, did he? That would be questionable. Right? If he's using a clean gun, if he's using a gun that was obtained just for this assassination, why wouldn't he leave it on the building? Why wouldn't he have, some alcohol spray on him and know how to, get rid of fingerprints? Why wouldn't he take gloves with him? That could fit in his knapsack. Take out the gloves, put the gloves on, try to not leave fingerprints. Right? Why is the guy taking the gun off the building in a crowded part of campus where if he stopped by anyone, campus police, other students, concerned citizens who've heard on the radio that there was a shooting on campus, he'd be finished. Right? He would have a rifle, if you believe there's a rifle in his knapsack. Right? Who has seen him with the rifle on that day? If the guy has a rifle on him, leaving the top of a building nearby where a figure has been shot by a high-powered rifle, the crowd's going to think that he was the assassin. If he's lucky, he gets arrested on the spot. If he's unlucky, he gets beaten up like Richard Ramirez, right? The Night Stalker, right? And so, folks, please go to murder777.blogspot.com right now. Watch the video. Listen to the guy. Just see him taking out the tools to disassemble the rifle, and you realize it's preposterous. That couldn't have been the plan. That would be as ridiculous as Oswald shooting President Kennedy and then sticking around the sniper's nest to disassemble the rifle, take out tools and stuff like that. It wouldn't happen that way. Right? So the cops right now, they're investigating, but they can't tell you, the public. We don't think this guy acted alone. Worse yet, we're not sure whether he was even the gunman. Right? The timeline doesn't match up. I quite frankly wouldn't be surprised if they say the gun we found in the woods is not the murder weapon. Right? Again, it's murder777.blogspot.com. I'll leave a link in the description of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.